Rape in marriage, consent, and assault. It was really easy for me to totally skip these topics, but it would have been such a shame had I sidestepped the most important issues. Three things. One, there was and is no rape in a traditional marriage. The answer lies in vows. I'll come to that in a sec. Two, the way feminists propose consent is not only artificial, but it totally denies men any sort of rights in the sexual act in which they are equally involved. 3. Every contact in nature is not assault, and least of all sexual assault. The direction which feminists have taken is really destructive to the very fabric of our society. Now let me come to these in detail. In case of marriage, what were the traditional vows? You were committing to someone with your entire body and soul until death did you apart. Doesn't matter what religion or culture you come from, marriage was basically being tied to another person, body and soul, for the rest of your life. Of course, divorce was subsequently discovered as a legal remedy, but in spite of that, marriage traditionally always was that you were giving your body and soul to the person you were marrying, and you were getting that person's body and soul in return. Now that is a lifelong consent. So when you have given a lifelong consent, how could there be a rape? Now, of course, I understand that men, generally being physically stronger, were more likely to force their wife into having sex with them than the other way. But then that only makes women sore losers, not victims. The reason I bring up this topic is you are actually trying to use a modern day yardstick to change the meaning of things in the past. What wasn't actually a crime, you're trying to label those things as crime, which is wrong, because what wasn't accepted as a crime in a society, you cannot go back and say that no, by today's yardstick there was rape. That's wrong. The institution of marriage has fragmented. There is no denying that. But the problem is, if you think of marriage as such, how do you know what's the chemistry between the couple? People will fight on small niggles. It's natural to have some sort of strife day in, day out between husband and wife, small petty quarrels. How do they make up? If you were to bring so much artificiality into that relationship will cease to work. So every time a husband and wife have a bit of a fight, and the husband tries to patch up with the wife and kisses her or touches her, he's committing an assault because, well, he doesn't have a consent because they have just had a quarrel, and there's no way of the two patching up. So you immediately realize the difficulty you are creating in the marriage. And then people have different tastes. They're people who like S&M kind of stuff and other things like that. You have gone too far. You have interfered too much into the marriage. Think of consent. Even in today's marriage, when traditional marriages are going out of fashion and contract marriages are coming in and people are signing prenuptial contracts and stuff like that. Take the example of George Clooney. Do you think every night, if his wife is a well-known, world-famous lawyer, do you think every time he wants to have sex with her, he goes and asks her, sorry, do I have your consent to have sex with you? And do you think he actually stops midway in the act to say, do I still have your consent? No. Probably what must be happening is Mr. Clooney might be saying, should we do it tonight? And his wife might be going, nah, I'm just bloated. And of course, if he would insist, then he would either end up on couch or with the dogs. But that's another story. But you see immediately how artificial the concept of consent is becoming, the way it is being pushed. Now I'm going to come to consent in detail a bit later. But talking about the marriage, you have already done so much damage legally to the institution of marriage that you have literally taken apart the building that was above the ground. Now what you're doing is you are actually tearing away its foundations as well. You might as well go the full length and just declare marriage obsolete and redundant, and nobody would need to get married anyways. But this is just ridiculous. It's not the way a marriage works. There's too much artificiality and too much interference involved. People feel they have been wrong. Women feel they have been wrong even when they haven't been wrong, simply because everybody is telling, nah, this is wrong. Well, if you will keep telling someone this is wrong, even when it is not wrong, they will start feeling it is wrong. And that's what the feminists have been trying to do. And sadly, the unintelligence of others who should have been putting up arguments against them, who couldn't. So basically, the thing with marriage, traditional marriage, is with the vows you take, you are giving a lifelong consent. Now, if you don't like this concept, then don't go for traditional marriage. Now, coming to the consent as well, I was talking about Mr. Clooney. That was just an example to show how artificial the concept of consent is anyways. But of course, there is no denying that you cannot and you should not have sex with someone who is not consenting to it. But when does the right to consent stop being a woman's right? Feminist version of consent totally denies any rights to men, as if men are not involved in sex at all, when the fact is men are equally involved in the act as the women. A man's skin is not touching a woman's skin any more than a woman's skin is touching a man. As much a man is penetrating a woman, the woman is also engulfing the man inside her. If the way sex happens, that's just the way physically human bodies are designed. That's the only way that act can be done. Otherwise, both sexes are involved equally. This man is touching a woman no more than a woman is touching the man. Think of yourself in a house and you say that, okay, this is my house and nobody in this world can enter this house. Now, if the whole world was to say, okay, fine, we can't enter into your house, but you cannot come out of the house because outside your house, the world belongs to us. What is the end result? It's the same. While the world cannot get into your house, you cannot get out of your house. While the world is stopped from coming into your house, you are jailed inside your house. It doesn't matter one way or the other. So the fact is, both sexes are equally involved in sex. So you cannot say that only women has a right to consent and men have got no rights. And secondly, the other big aspect is, human beings are not machines. There is no on and off button that you press the on button, the person goes into the sex mode, and you press it off, the person goes into off mode. As much as women could be unsure about what they are doing and they might change their mind, it's equally likely that a man may not stop once he starts. There's a point after which the woman's right to withdraw her consent stops, and that point is once the penetration happens. A woman has every right to say, no, I don't want to have sex, but once the act has started, women has no right to say that the man does not have the consent. That brings me to a recent case where a woman had a consensual sex with a man who became a bit aggressive during the act. Some people are just in that S&M mold. So and she subsequently cried rape because she thought that she doesn't want to have it anymore because she wasn't comfortable. Sorry, every man is not perfect in every way. Every person have their own unique habits. Some people will be good, some people will be bad. Which is why if you find a good sexual partner, you should never give them up. You should never break up with a good partner, because everybody is unique in their own way and you might not be able to replace that person. What feminists are saying assumes that every man is the same or can be made the same. Sorry, that is not possible. You are totally denying the rights to men on one hand, and then you are expecting every man to be the same as well. If every woman is different, then every man has got a right to be different. Think about this. You cannot tell how a person is going to be once the act starts. So you need to make up your mind before the act starts. Once the act starts, it's not just your right alone. The other person has the equal right, because you both are equally involved in that act. You talk about consent in the form of a contract. Like in contract, one party agrees, the other party agrees, and there is a contract. While you also are not ready to accept that once certain actions have been taken in a contract, then the contract cannot be terminated without consequences. The same theory should apply to this as well. If you don't agree to reason and moral arguments, then the contract theory is also not in the favor of the consent theory as proposed by the feminists. You are creating a divide in the two sexes, which will only lead the two sexes more towards homosexuality. If homosexuality is on the rise, then it is all thanks to the way feminists has split the two sexes. Let me come to the issue of assault. Every contact in nature is not assault. Have a look around yourself in nature and how other mammalian species interact. Now, of course, we have come a long way from nature, and I will come to that in a minute. But the starting point is, if you look at the nature, no male of any mammalian species knows if the female will have sex with them. So they go and approach that female and, of course, touch her or fondle her, whatever they do. As you can see for yourself, you're not so inept, but they try to figure out would the female be interested or not. That is what the first contact is, and that is how human society developed. There were certain behavior patterns which were normal, and they have been normal until very recently, and they still might be normal in some societies. That's how you find out if the woman will have sex with you or not. That contact is not sexual assault. While the feminists want to use their modern today days thinking and declare everything which has happened in the past as an assault, and while the society is still used to the ways which have seen it emerge from ancient times into modern times, while the society is living in a different era, feminists are using a new yardstick to declare something a crime which is not a crime. It's not a crime in nature. It's not a crime even in the society where the people live. Of course, over a period of time, society will evolve, people's viewpoints will change, but until that time, what the feminists label as crime is not actually a crime. That's the way human interaction has happened for centuries. But by calling it a crime, they make people who were not even victims feel like victims. In fact, gold diggers who were well aware of what they were doing, who knew that this is what men do with women, who knew that these men are married to other women, would still go and try to get that man out. They are abusing the groundwork done by feminists to harass men who probably did nothing wrong by the standards of the society they were living in. But feminists won't listen to reason, because reason is the first thing feminists don't accept, because it's a man which is giving a reason, and men are wrong as far as feminists are concerned. But sorry, that can't go on any further now. There's a lot more that I can say, and I probably have forgotten a lot of things, but I think I've given enough for you people to think. So think.